Imagine a house that no one could enter and no one could escape. A place sealed from the inside where a terrible crime happened, yet not a single window was broken and every door was locked. Police, detectives, even scientists tried to explain it, but the truth only grew darker. This is the story of the locked house mystery, a case that defied logic, shattered reason, and left the world asking one haunting question. How can someone vanish from a room that was never opened? It was a cold, silent night when the mystery began. The small town of Ravenscroft had never seen much trouble, a quiet place where everyone knew each other, and life followed a calm routine. But that peace shattered on one strange night, when screams echoed from the old Whitmore house at the edge of the woods. By the time the neighbors arrived, the place was completely locked, every door bolted from the inside, every window sealed shut. Yet inside, someone was dead. The Whitmore house had always been a strange landmark. It was built in the late 1800s by a wealthy inventor named Dr. Charles Whitmore. The house was full of hidden corridors, mechanical locks, and secret chambers. Locals often said that the house itself was alive, a maze of gears, shadows, and whispers. But on that winter night, it became the scene of a crime that would haunt detectives for decades. When the police broke down the main door the next morning, they were met with an eerie silence. The fire in the living room had burned out, and the smell of smoke and dust filled the air. Lying near the center of the room was Dr. Whitmore himself, lifeless, his face pale as marble. There were no signs of forced entry. Every window was locked from the inside, and the snow outside was untouched, not a single footprint leading in or out. Detective Harold Briggs, one of the finest investigators in the county, was called to the scene. He was a man known for solving impossible puzzles, but even he was shaken by what he saw. "This doesn't make sense," he whispered as he examined the door. The townspeople gathered outside, whispering in fear. Some said Dr. Whitmore had been working on secret experiments involving sound waves and magnetic locks. Others claimed the house was cursed, that the doctor had opened a door to another world. The press quickly named it the Locked House Mystery, and soon reporters from across the country arrived to cover the strange case. Inside, Detective Briggs noticed that all of the house's clocks had stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m. That was likely the time of death. A single candle sat on the desk, burned down halfway, and a note lay beside it. But when Briggs picked it up, he found it blank. No ink, no writing. As he turned it under the light, faint markings began to appear, as if written in invisible ink. He ordered the note to be taken to the lab. "Find out what's written here," he told his assistant, because this might be the only voice the doctor left behind. By nightfall, strange things began happening in the house. The temperature dropped sharply, doors creaked on their own, and lights flickered even though the electricity had been cut. One of the officers swore he heard faint footsteps upstairs, though no one was there. The mystery was no longer just about a murder, it was about something else that didn't belong in the world of logic. Detective Briggs spent the next few days reviewing every clue. He knew the answer was hidden somewhere inside that house, but the deeper he searched, the more impossible it became. The question that echoed in his mind refused to leave. How can a man die in a locked room, without anyone entering or leaving it? Detective Harold Briggs returned to the Whitmore house the next morning with renewed determination. The cold wind swept across the empty halls, making the old wooden floor creak like a whisper. He was the type to believe in ghosts or curses, but this house tested his every belief. He walked from room to room, studying each lock, window latch, and floorboard. Nothing had been tampered with. Every door was locked from the inside. The windows were sealed tight, and the chimney was too narrow for anyone to climb through. Yet someone had managed to kill Dr. Charles Whitmore and disappear into thin air. The investigation quickly became a national sensation. Newspapers called it the murder that broke all rules. Reporters arrived from London, New York, and even Paris, hoping to see the place themselves. But no one had any answers. Only one clue seemed to matter: the mysterious note found beside the doctor's body. When the lab returned their analysis, something shocking came to light. Under ultraviolet light, the message appeared in faded blue ink. It read, "The walls remember what the eyes cannot see." Detective Briggs stared at those words for hours. What did they mean? He ordered a full inspection of the walls, searching for hidden panels or false doors. The team found a small section of the study wall that sounded hollow. When they pried it open, they discovered a narrow tunnel filled with old machinery, gears, levers, and rusted pipes leading deeper into the structure. It seemed the doctor had built a hidden system beneath his own home, but for what purpose, no one knew. Briggs followed the tunnel with a lantern in hand. Air grew colder as he moved forward. At the end of the passage, he found something entirely unexpected. A steel door with a complex mechanical lock, sealed tight. It looked like no ordinary lock. It was powered by a system of magnets and clockwork years ahead of its time. The detective realized this was one of Dr. Whitmore's secret inventions. But the key to opening it was missing. Back in the main study, he noticed another odd thing. The floorboards near the fireplace were slightly scratched, as if something heavy had been dragged across them recently. He ordered his men to lift them. Beneath the boards was a small trapdoor, leading into a cellar. The cellar was dark and dusty, filled with old tools and broken furniture. And there, on one of the tables, sat another candle, half melted, just like the one near the doctor's desk. It became clear that someone else had been down there that night. But the question still burned in everyone's mind. How did they leave? The cellar had only one exit, and it too was locked from the inside. Rumors began to spread in town that Dr. Whitmore's last invention had something to do with sound that he had found a way to manipulate. Frequencies strong enough to unlock or seal objects using vibrations. If that were true, then maybe he had accidentally sealed himself inside his own experiment. Others whispered darker theories that he had discovered a way to move through matter itself. Briggs dismissed the supernatural talk, but deep down, a part of him wondered if the doctor's genius had crossed a line science wasn't. Ready for late that evening, as he prepared to leave the house, he heard a faint tapping sound coming from behind the steel door in the tunnel. 3 slow knocks. Pause, then 2 more. It was rhythmic, deliberate, almost like a signal. He froze. "Is anyone there?" he called out, his voice echoing through the tunnel. But there was no reply, only the sound of the gears shifting faintly inside the walls, as if the house itself were breathing. He turned off his lantern, but the knocking continued, now louder, clearer. It was as if something or someone was still inside. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Briggs left the house that night knowing one thing. The real clue wasn't the note, or the lock, or the tunnel. The real clue was the sound, and whatever made it might still be waiting in the dark. The following morning, Detective Briggs returned to the Whitmore house with fresh resolve. The knocking from behind the steel door still echoed in his mind. He brought along an engineer named Alfred Hensley, an expert in old machinery, hoping he could make sense of the doctor's strange inventions. The 2 men descended into the tunnel once again, lanterns lighting the way through the thick dust and cobwebs. As they reached the steel door, Hensley ran his hands over the lock, eyes widening with fascination. "This isn't just a door," he said softly. "It's a mechanism. A system of magnetic gears. Perhaps even electrically charged." That was shocking, because the Whitmore house had no electricity supply in the 1890s. Somehow, Dr. Whitmore had managed to build a magnetic circuit decades ahead of his time. Hensley pulled out a small toolkit and began examining the gears. After several minutes of adjustments, a faint hum filled the air. The steel began to vibrate slowly at first, then with growing intensity. "Step back," he warned. A click echoed, followed by a deep metallic groan, as the door creaked open for the first time in years. Cold air rushed out, and the lantern flame flickered violently. Behind the door was a laboratory. Dust covered the tables, but everything else was perfectly preserved. Rows of glass tubes, strange metallic coils, and blueprints pinned to the walls. One large machine stood in the center of the room, covered by a sheet. When they pulled the sheet away, both men froze. It was a circular device made of brass and iron, with dozens of small wires running to a control panel. A small plaque on it read, "The Sound Chamber Prototype 3. Dr. Whitmore had been experimenting with sound, not music or vibration, but something far stranger. The notebooks scattered across the desk detailed his theory that sound could alter physical matter. According to his writings, the right frequency could displace molecules temporarily, allowing objects to pass through solid barriers. Briggs's eyes widened. "You mean he thought he could walk through walls?" Hensley nodded slowly. If this machine worked, that's exactly what he believed. One entry in the notebook caught Briggs's attention. It was dated just one day before the doctor's death. "Final trial tomorrow. Frequency at 17.3 Hz shows promising results. But energy field unstable test only from within sealed chamber." So that was it. The doctor had sealed himself inside the house to test his experiment. But something must have gone wrong. Briggs looked closer at the notes and realized that the machine wasn't designed to just open locks. It was meant to bend space itself, creating a temporary void between physical points. 8. As the detective explored further, he noticed burn marks along the walls and floor, circular patterns, almost like sound waves frozen in time. Near the control panel lay a pair of gloves and a cracked glass vial. Whatever happened here, it was no accident. The experiment had gone catastrophically wrong. Suddenly, a faint hum began again, the same sound they had heard before. The machine was reactivating. "It's turning on by itself," shouted Hensley, pulling the lever to shut it off, but nothing happened. The frequency rose, making the walls tremble. The lantern light danced wildly as the air seemed to twist around them. Briggs grabbed his coat and ran for the tunnel, shouting for Hensley to follow, but when he turned back, the engineer had vanished, gone without a trace. The humming stopped, leaving only silence. Panicked, Briggs returned moments later with 2 officers, but Hensley was nowhere to be found. His toolkit lay open beside the machine, but there was no sign of struggle, no blood, nothing, just an empty lab. The air still crackling faintly with energy. The machine had done it again. It had made a man disappear from a locked room. That night, Detective Briggs sat in his car outside the Whitmore house, staring at the dark windows. The house looked quiet, lifeless, but he knew better. He knew something inside was still awake, a machine that didn't just break locks, but reality itself. And somewhere deep in that silence, he thought he heard it again. 3 slow knocks. Pause. 2 more. Detective Harold Briggs didn't sleep that night. He sat at his desk in the station, staring at Hensley's empty file. One moment the man was standing beside him, alive and curious. The next he was gone. No scream, no light, no smoke, just vanished into nothing. Briggs had seen many horrors in his career, but this was different. This wasn't murder. This was something beyond human understanding. The next morning, the Whitmore house was sealed off completely. The police placed guards outside, warning everyone to stay away. But people in town were already talking. Stories spread like wildfire. Some said the doctor had created a portal to another world. Others whispered that the house was cursed, swallowing anyone who disturbed it. Children dared each other to walk near the gates, and every night, few swore they saw a flickering blue light through the cracks in the shutters. Briggs, meanwhile, requested help from a scientist named Professor Eliza Grant from the London Institute of Science. She was one of the few people who had studied early sound wave theories. When she arrived, she listened quietly as Briggs explained everything. The sealed doors, the notes, the sound chamber, and Hensley's disappearance. She didn't laugh or call him crazy. Instead, she said something that chilled him. "Detective, if Whitmore was right, then he wasn't building a doorway. He was building a mirror, one that doesn't reflect light, but space itself." That afternoon, the 2 of them returned to the house. Dust floated in the sunlight, pouring through the cracked windows. The air felt charged, heavy, almost alive. They made their way down to the hidden lab. Everything was exactly as Briggs had left it, except one thing. The machine was now humming again. No one had touched it. Professor Grant leaned closer to the device, her instruments picking up faint sound frequencies just below human hearing. "It's still active," she whispered, "and it's looping the same frequency, repeating over and over. That's why it sounds like knocking. It's an echo, an echo."
Ow.
Briggs's heart skipped. Could the knocking he heard actually be the sound of something, or someone trapped inside? He moved closer to the control panel. The gauges flickered, the dials spun on their own. And then, through the hum, he heard a voice. Help. It was faint, distant, but unmistakable. Hensley's voice. Briggs and Grant exchanged terrified glances. The detective shouted into the chamber, "Hensley, can you hear me?" The voice came again, warped and distorted. "It's dark. Can't see. Door. Closed." The professor's hands trembled. "He's not gone, Harold. Stuck between." "Between what?" Briggs demanded. She took a deep breath. "Between moments. Between physical states." The experiment must have bent matter around him, leaving him suspended like an echo that never fades. They needed to act fast. Grant began adjusting the dials, trying to reverse the frequency pattern. The humming grew louder, sharper, until the floor itself began to shake. "If we can align it just right," she shouted over the noise, "we might bring him back." But the house seemed to resist. The walls groaned, the pipes rattled, and the same invisible force that had taken Hensley now seemed to rise again. The lights went out. Darkness. Then, a flash of blinding blue light filled the room. The sound was deafening, like 1,000 screams compressed into one single note. When it stopped, everything fell silent again. Briggs opened his eyes slowly. The machine was smoking, parts of it melted. Grant was unconscious but breathing, and on the floor near the machine was something, a glove. Hensley's glove. But no Hensley. Briggs lifted the glove in disbelief. Inside was ash fine, gray dust that crumbled in his hand. The machine hadn't brought him back. It had burned him into nothing. Professor Grant woke moments later, coughing. "We have to destroy it," she whispered. "If this stays active, it could tear more than just walls." Briggs nodded grimly. He knew she was right. But as they turned to leave, the machine flickered once more, as if mocking them, one faint pulse of light, followed by the sound that had haunted him since the beginning. 3 slow knocks. Pause. 2 more. Only this time, it was coming from the walls above them. Detective Harold Briggs had seen death before. He'd seen murder, lies, and madness. But nothing compared to what lurked inside the Whitmore house. After the failed attempt to rescue Hensley, he ordered the property officially condemned. No one was allowed within 50 yards of its gates, yet even as weeks passed, reports continued. Neighbors claimed they still heard faint knocking at night. Some swore they saw lights flicker inside, as if someone were walking the halls again. But Briggs couldn't let go. Every night he dreamed of that sound. 3 knocks, pause, 2 more. It called to him like a heartbeat echoing through time. He knew that if he didn't find the truth, it would haunt him forever. So, one cold February evening, he went back alone. The house greeted him with silence. His lantern's glow illuminated the dust dancing in the air. The moment he stepped inside, the door shut behind him, not slammed, but quietly, as though the house was welcoming him home. He moved through the halls slowly, the old wooden floor creaking beneath his boots. Everything felt familiar, yet changed, like a memory warped by time. Down in the basement lab, the machine sat dormant. Its gears were covered in ash, the brass corroded from heat. Yet when Briggs touched the surface, he felt warmth, as though it had been running just moments before. He placed his lantern on the table and studied Dr. Whitmore's final notes one last time. If sound can bend the fabric of space, then perhaps time is only another layer of vibration. What separates the past from the present may not be years, but frequencies. It hit him all at once. The doctor hadn't been trying to escape his house. He'd been trying to communicate through time. The chamber wasn't built for travel. It was built for contact. The knocking wasn't a ghost or an echo. It was a signal from another moment in time, looping endlessly between the living and the dead. Briggs began to piece it together. Whitmore had activated the chamber from inside. Something had gone wrong, causing his body to vanish while his consciousness, his frequency, remained trapped. Hensley, when he tampered with the machine, must have tuned himself into the same signal, becoming part of that endless echo.
Oh.
But there was one last entry in the doctor's notebook, written hastily, as though moments before disaster. If the frequency collapses, the echo will seek a host. A chill ran through Briggs. A host that meant the knocking wasn't just sound. It was seeking something alive. Suddenly, the lantern flickered. The air grew heavy again. A deep vibration filled the room, shaking the floor. The machine's gears began to turn, though no power was connected. The faint blue light returned, swirling around the chamber like mist. And then he heard it. Detective Briggs froze. It was the doctor's voice, calm, familiar but distant. "Don't be afraid," it said softly. "I've found a way through." Briggs backed away, heart racing. "Whitmore, what do you mean through?" The voice echoed again. "I need form. I need to return." The blue light expanded, wrapping around the room. The sound waves pulsed like a heartbeat. And then, out of the mist, a faint shape began to appear, half human, half shadow. The detective's lantern burst into flame as the entity stepped closer, its face flickering between Whitmore's and Hensley's. Briggs grabbed his revolver, trembling. "Stay back." But before he could react, the figure lunged, and the room exploded with sound. Now the vibration was so intense it shattered glass and splintered wood. When it stopped, everything fell eerily quiet. Hours later, when officers arrived after hearing the blast, the Whitmore house was empty. The machine was gone, melted into the floor. Professor Grant identified only one thing left behind: Harold Briggs's notebook, lying open on the table. The final line read in his handwriting, "The knocking has stopped. I think I've joined them." The government sealed the site permanently. The Whitmore house was demolished, its land marked unsafe for construction. But locals still say that on quiet nights, when the wind is still, you can hear the faint echo of those knocks coming from beneath the earth. 3 slow knocks, pause, 2 more. And no matter how many times the ground is sealed, the mystery of the locked house refuses to stay buried. Think you've heard every mystery there is? Think again. The Whitmore house defies logic, science, and time itself, and the truth is darker than anyone imagined. Watch till the very end, because the final twist will leave your mind spinning. Subscribe if you love chilling mysteries that no detective could solve. Turn on notifications, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Comment below. What do you think really happened inside the locked house? Like and share this video if you believe some secrets are never meant to be opened.